Hello lovely people, my name is Emma and today I'm going to be talking about some of my favourite reads I had during my hiatus off of BookTube. So obviously I've still been reading quite a lot during the time that I've been away, and these are some books that we got missed in wrap-ups and things like that because I wasn't doing them, that I just wanted an opportunity to talk about on my channel. It is a mixture of fiction and non-fiction, so do hang around depending on what you like from me because there's going to be a bit of both. The first book I'm going to talk about is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thompson. This is a YA or maybe new adult fiction book that is set in Mexico, and it follows a trans teenage boy who is part of a culture where the magic system is split between what men and women can do, and he believes wholeheartedly that he should have the kind of male-centered magic system, and it is about his journey to try and prove that to his family and to kind of earn his rightful place as a trans man. In doing so, he actually summons a ghost, and it's a ghost of another teenage boy from his school, and is about them trying to work out how the boy died, and it gets interwoven into a big kind of supernatural plot that is happening behind the scenes. It was a really fun read and was really cool having it based in Mexico and really getting to immerse in the culture and the sort of supernatural from a different culture, which was really good fun. And I absolutely loved the storyline between the two boys and the way that their romance came together. It was just all around a really heartwarming tale that I greatly appreciated. The next two I'm actually going to group together because they're both from the same author, and I basically found Ira Levin during my break. I say found, discovered. This guy's been big for ages. Ira Levin was writing, I think, in like the 50s, and writes a lot of kind of very classic horror. So I've read Rosemary's Baby and The Stepford Wives, which are probably his two biggest titles. They are both fantastic. Both have been made into movies, I think probably several times over now, and are just an absolutely wonderful reading experience. The Stepford Wives is about a family who moves into a like small town in kind of suburban America, and there is something weird going on with the women. The men seem to be plotting against them, women seem to be disappearing and then coming back not quite right, and it's about this new woman in town sort of journey and discovery to try and work out what is happening. It is really creepy and sort of sinister, but in a very wholesome way that is such a like kind of classic American dream, but with this undertone of tension and violence and like, yeah, stress in general. Really good fun. And then Rosemary's Baby is about a couple who are struggling to conceive, and then she does manage to fall pregnant with the help of some creepy neighbours, but it doesn't all feel quite right. Her pregnancy isn't really okay, and again, she thinks that the neighbours are quite controlling and overbearing and that people are keeping stuff from her, and her husband seems to be more and more against her as time goes on. It is fantastic. I really love the ending to both of them. Ira Levin has a wonderful writing style, and I'm definitely going to check out more from him in the future. I did Rosemary's Baby on audiobook and then this one in physical form. Both were equally as enjoyable. I think he has an incredibly light, easy reading style, which I think again really helps with how creepy the content is, because it feels like such a breeze to read it, but the undertone is filled with such tension that you're like, it's almost like a juxtaposition between how light a lot of the language is, but then also how dark the subject matter can be. So yeah, really good fun. One that I'm sure was incredibly popular when it came out is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I love Andy Weir. He does really fantastic fun sci-fi. This is about a guy who, there's some kind of crazy radiation thing happening on the planet, and he has to go out on a spaceship to try and work out what's going wrong, and it's sort of a dual timeline of before the spaceship and then his adventures on the spaceship because something goes terribly wrong out there, and it's about him trying to fix it. It's really fun. The reason why I like Andy Weir is he couches a lot of his stuff in quite deep scientific ideas, and I think that they do track relatively well. I also listened to this one on audiobook, which I think is a very enjoyable way of approaching a lot of his work because it's quite like ship's log epistolary kind of style, and then there are some things that happen later that I won't mention because they would be spoilers, that really lend themselves to the audio format. So it's just something to kind of bear in mind with this one. But yeah, I love Andy Weir. I think I've now read all of his back catalogue, and they're just generally like fun, rompy sci-fi. Now we're going to move on to the non-fiction section of this video, and I have a fun one for you. I read Tulip Mania by Mike Dash, which is the story of the world's most coveted flower and the extraordinary passions it aroused. This is a book about the Tulip Mania that happened in Holland in the like 16th century, maybe 17th century. I'm so shaky on dates. And it is one of the first examples of like an economic bubble forming and then bursting. It's some of the earliest examples of like future shares in the market, and it literally was over the plant tulips. If you're a history buff, you probably heard about this before, and if you're an economics buff, you've almost definitely heard about it because it gets mentioned quite a lot as an example of one of these very early, quite wacky bubbles that is driven by a lot of internal value that is only in the eye of the buyer and the seller rather than the intrinsic value of the product itself, because tulips were going for a rate that was absurd, but they're just tulips. So like, what was happening there? Really great, very interesting book. I think it was very well written and just such an enjoyable snapshot into a particular time period on a particular country, and also this fascinating look at how economics has developed and how things like these kinds of bubbles can form. And you can see so many of the things that were occurring in the Tulip Mania sort of being echoed in other bubbles that then burst since then. So a really enjoyable, wonderful kind of clash of history and economics in one book. So much fun, and also it's quite fun googling the various tulips that they mention because all of them are very pretty. I probably wouldn't drop 10k on one of them, but they're pretty nonetheless. This book I did mention in my latest science and biology recommendation video, but I wanted to put it in here as well because I had such a good time reading it, and that is Life at the Extremes by Francis Ashcroft. I don't know why it's not bigger on the cover. This is a book that looks at how the human body or the mammalian body handles life at the extremes, whether it be extreme heat or extreme cold, extreme differences in pressure, various things like that. It is incredibly in-depth, really fun science book that, because of kind of bouncing across, you learn so many different things about how our biology works, but also get to learn about all sorts of horrible things about people being in peril up mountains or scuba diving or cave diving or in submarines or whatever. And yeah, just really, really fun and enjoyable. Definitely very accessible when it comes to the science, and because it kind of bounced around all over the place, you never get too bored of one topic. So great fun, fantastic read. Another book that I did mention in that video, but again definitely deserves an honourable mention because I had such a good time reading it, is The Facemaker by Lindsey Fitzharris. I love Lindsey Fitzharris. She's very much becoming a bit of a powerhouse for the history of science for me. This is a look at one surgeon in particular and his work with facial reconstructive surgery in World War I. Because in World War I we reached a point where people were being maimed, especially in the facial region, because of things like mustard gas, and so sort of scientific advancements and medical advancements meant that people were coming back from war with quite gruesome war injuries that needed kind of reconstruction in some way, and it became really a conversation of what it meant to be kind of a survivor afterwards. And this book is looking at some of the radical inventions and sort of innovative processes he came up with. His name is Gilly, it was Harold Gilly, and also then the other advancements that happened in things like anesthesia and asepsis, and also prosthesis, and sort of being able to do like facial reconstruction but with like painted parts and sort of fake noses and things. Really, really interesting, and a lovely look at World War I at the same time as well. So sort of a very broad history as much as it is about Harold Gilly. So great fun. Lindsey Fitzharris is such a good writer. I think she's really good at keeping pace in books. At no point do you feel bogged down with the details. She knows how to keep the history moving nicely, and I really liked all the ancillary details that were included in this one because it wasn't just focused on Harold Gilly. And I think that's about it. There was a whole bunch of romance books that I really enjoyed, but I am doing like separate videos for those at some point. But yeah, these were just some books that I'm not going to get a chance really to mention otherwise, so I just wanted to kind of highlight them and be like, hey, these were a really great reading experience, and you should totally check them out. So let me know what you think, if you've read any of them or if you now intend to read any of them, and if you've got any recommendations based on what I've been reading that you think I might enjoy. Have a wonderful reading week, and I'll chat to you soon. Bye.